So in this video, we're going to be putting our Tigers text on a diet. If we look at the overall width of our Tigers text as it sits right now, it's 10.71 inches. And, for most shirts, that probably isn't going to work very well. So what we need to do is we need to look at putting it on a diet. And so here is our finished project, and we select it, and now that is 9.3 inches. Well, now that's going to fit quite nicely on a shirt, won't it? Most of the time when we're doing a full front design, we need the design to be roughly 9 to 10 inches. 10 inches really being probably the maximum that I would want to do. So what we did here, if you look closely, we still have all of our outlines, but now every letter shares an outline. And so that will skinny up our design. And so we're going to show you kind of how we just do that real basic editing. So first thing to do is go ahead and select our design here. And I'm just going to make a duplicate of it. So there is our duplicate. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to lock down my weed box. So we'll go ahead and lock that down, but just right click on it and choose lock object. And then we just have to decide what's going to take precedence. In terms of stones. So for me, our eye is going to take precedence. So I'm just going to come in here and delete these stones, like so. And then we'll go ahead and take our letter I, and we'll slide it right on over, like so. Now, we'll use our handy dandy selection tool here, and Shift Create Selection to select all those stones at an angle. And we're going to just hit Shift P, and that just does a slight adjustment there on these stones here to space them up a little bit. Okay, so now you can see that comes across really nice there. So now the next thing to do is to decide again what's going to take precedence. And for me, what's going to take precedence is this row of stones for the eye. So when we bring this G over, in fact, you know what? We might want to just take some of these stones. Let's just do that quick. Let's take some of those stones and give them a different color, just so we can maybe see those a little bit better. So that's where our intersection is going to happen there. And we're just going to pull that G over completely horizontally. And you see, we're just going to kind of just line that up. There's no exact right way to do it. And then we're going to delete whatever stones we need to delete here that are blue, so that can share that outline, just like so. And wherever the chips fall, they fall. So you can see that actually did pretty good. Now we do have a gap there, but you know what? That's the nature of rhinestones. I mean, there really isn't much you can do. We could maybe throw a couple of SS6 stones in there, but honestly, there really isn't much you can do in that particular situation. Now, for our letter E here, I actually see we actually have an extra stone there. So for our letter E, this line is going to take precedence. So I'm going to get rid of these stones here, like so. And then when I pull over my letter E, the outline of our letter E will be kind of the outline stone. So you see how that works there? Just pull that right on over. And that takes care of that. Now, we have an overlapping stone here, so we'll get rid of that from the letter G. And then up top here, we have a couple of overlaps. So we'll get rid of those. And this one here, we'll just make a small change there. It's really tight, but that's okay. One tight stone isn't gonna hurt you too bad. And yeah, there's little gaps there, but you know what? When it gets on a shirt, you're never gonna notice it. But look at how much weight we have already lost. The letter S and this big gap here, we close that up just by getting rid of the spacing between the letters and that extra line of stones. So that's pretty good. So then what's going to take precedence here? Well, I usually use the longer line. So we're going to get rid of all these stones on the end cap. And we'll go ahead and these stones here, I'm just going to pick them up and dump them right there. Something like that. And now we'll go ahead and move over our letter R here. Now, we do have a couple of stones here that we need to get rid of. Right there. Okay, so we got one more there on our letter S that we had to pick up. And now we can pull this right on over. And maybe just a pinch more. Okay, something like that. That looks good. And that takes care of that. And what I would do again is use our handy dandy selection tool, Shift Create Selection, and that will select all those stones along that line and just space them out, Shift P, and that takes care of the spacing there. Then down here, you know, we could fudge this a tiny little bit, and we might do the same thing, Shift A, select all these 4 and just space them out a little bit. So you can see how everything's connecting really nice. Now for our letter S, well, that might take a little bit more work because it may at first just not line up exactly the way we want to, but that's okay. We'll fix it up. So we're going to just take our letter S here, slide it across. Now it might be nice to take some of these stones here just to help us in, and I do this sometimes when I'm actually designing it, give it a different color where we think these stones are going to intersect. Just grab a few stones here and recolor them because it might be a little bit easier to differentiate between the two. Okay, so now that we have that in place, we can go ahead and select our letter S and let's just pull it over like so. Okay, and I might have pulled it a little bit too far, so we'll pull it back a little bit. And then we're going to see how this lines up. So up here you can see these stones, there's a little bit of a gap there. So how do we fix that? Well, one thing that we could do is we could actually rotate the whole letter S just a little bit, just a tiny little bit, and see if we can get that more like so. See how now those stones will come together, and then look at how we're doing at the bottom. So that tiny little bit of rotation there doesn't affect the design too greatly, but I think we'll actually take care of what we needed to take care of. So let's go back in here. Let's delete these stones here. Oops. We'll nudge that stone down a little bit. We'll select these, going across and hit Shift P. Now these are a little bit too tight there, so you can see that there. They're a little bit too tight, so we'll just pull that back a little bit. I might have been a little bit, shouldn't have pulled it over quite so much, but that's okay. We can make a small change there without making too big a fuss over it. See, we just had to move those couple of stones over there a little bit, and I'm actually going to move this down because I don't like, there's a little bit of a weird gap going there. So, and I might actually punch this one in a little bit. Spacing is really important to me, so I really obsess over that quite a bit. And then we'll take these stones, Shift A, that'll kind of space them a little bit better, more evenly. Okay, and then we can select these blue stones here that we had to recolor, and we'll go back over here and we'll just do that rename and fill function there, and that will kind of tidy those up a little bit. And I'm going to take those 4 and just nudge them just a little bit. Alright, and I actually want to nudge these 2 a little bit. There. Pull them down, over, under, and get it just the way I want to. Like I said, sometimes I'll obsess over the smallest, tiniest change, but there we go. So that takes care of that intersection. Then up here, basically the same thing. We're going to use our letter S as the dominant letter there for the outline. Pull that down, get rid of that, and then we'll select these again. And we'll do the rename and fill just to change those colors. And boy, I wish we could get this to go here. So we will get it to go. We're just gonna have to make some changes here. So get that where you want it, and then nudge the rest. And what we're doing is slightly coming out, and gaining just that little bit of extra space that we need. And there we go. So now we have still a great looking design. Let's go ahead and unlock that weed box, and we'll add a new weed box behind it. Ta-da! So really nice looking design. Yes, there's a couple of gaps where those curves intersect a straight line, but you know what? There's really not much you can do about that. And now if we look at the overall design, 9.3 inches wide instead of 10.7. So we saved ourselves quite a bit of room. So great looking design, and that gives you a little idea of how we can add outlines, and then how we can use a shared outline between letters and have a nice looking design, but have it where it's not too wide to fit on a shirt.